I just posted my first ever members only video. I did a breakdown about Mario Batista versus Jose Aldo, Kayla Harrison's next fight, and I went in depth about how jacked, explosive black guys is the kryptonite to Stephen Wonderboy Thompson's fight style. If you want to become a member, you can find a link about it in the description. A fight that seems to be kind of flying under the radar is Francis Ngannou's first fight over at the PFL. And look, I get it. It's the PFL. I myself never watch other combat sports promotions other than the UFC, but, I thought I would check it out. There's a lot riding on this fight. Dana White is praying to God that Francis Ngannou loses this fight. His biggest fear in life is another combat sports promotion arguably having the best fighter in the world. He cannot stand it. Now, typically, though, this is never a problem because every other combat sports promotion other than the UFC is so niche that the general public has no idea that those guys even exist. But Francis Ngannou, people know he exists. All right, he's a big name. And he got his big name defying the UFC, defying Dana White. They always treated Francis like shit. But the straw that broke the camel's back was Francis said he wanted to box Tyson Fury. Dana White called him a lunatic, said it was never going to happen. So Francis said, fuck you, I'm going. And the madman arguably beat Tyson Fury. And now he has the opportunity to really stick it to him, really stick it to Dana. And let's be honest, that is what we're all hoping for. I mean, that is the ideal outcome here. Dana White, right, for all the good he's done, right, he is just not who he used to be. Dana used to be a man of the people way, way back in the day, but it is becoming more evident with every passing hour that he is an out-of-touch multimillionaire whose ego is out of control. And we all want Francis Ngannou to, take a shit in his open mouth. That's what we want. But I'll be honest. Renan Ferreira, the guy that Francis is fighting in the PFL, he is scary for a number of reasons. He just is, and I think the big reason is, he essentially is the Francis Ngannou of the PFL. They are very similar in a lot of ways. Both of them are known for having one-punch knockout power. Everybody's game plan against Ferreira is to try to take him down, put him flat on his back, and they're both huge. Though there are some key differences as well, one of which being, I would say Francis is going to have a little bit more power for sure, but I think Ferreira is honestly the cleaner striker. I think he's a bit faster, a bit slicker. He is significantly taller, significantly longer, and you know what? Yeah, it's scary. But look, I get it. He's fighting over at the PFL. People consider the PFL to be a bit lowbrow, but, come on. The UFC heavyweight division itself is pretty garbage, so let's just look at this with an open mind, all right? Let's look at Ferreira's fight against the famous, beloved fighter, Mauricio Green. Mauricio Green, I know all you guys are very well aware of him. He's a famous training partner of Jon Jones. Jon Jones was actually in his corner for this fight. He's 6'9", and, I get it. His record is 11 wins, 8 losses. I understand that, but just look at Ferreira here, right? He's not pulling a Robelis Despain and wasting all of his height and length just rushing at you with right hands. He's staying in the center. He's using decent movement, and he's just waiting for Green to go at him. And the second he does, boom, times a right hand right down the middle, knocks him out stiff. All right, look, I don't care that it's Mauricio Green. That is real timing, real power, and that is a legit problem in the heavyweight division. Or how about his fight against the legend Ryan Bader? Ferreira's doing a very similar thing. He's maintaining distance well. He's waiting for Bader to have to try to close the distance at some point, and the second he does, boom, right hand over the top, knocks him out immediately. Now, look, I understand what you're saying, though. Ryan Bader was about 40 years old, and he only weighed 236 pounds. During this fight. Well, doesn't that sound familiar when Francis Ngannou knocked out Stipe Miocic way slower, who was also way up there in age and also only weighed 230 pounds? So look, there is no ifs, ands, or buts around it. Francis Ngannou, he can certainly win this fight, don't get me wrong, but he needs to find a way to close the distance against a guy who is just waiting to time a right hand right down the middle and can knock you out with one punch, no problem. So, is Ngannou capable of that? Look, I think when it comes to breaking down Ngannou's skills, I think we are very, very lucky that he lost to Anthony Joshua in the way that he did. Because can you imagine if Francis just retired after the Tyson Fury fight? He would have been on the same GOAT legend status as somebody like Khabib. You know, something I've talked about in depth on the channel is the fact that Khabib, nobody actually represents his skill set accurately. You know, there are very specific things that he did better than anybody. There are very specific reasons he was so dominant against the matchups that he had, but most people just say that, oh, he was the greatest and no one can stop him and he was the best wrestler in the universe and he's just the greatest and undisputed, nothing, no, he's the best, he's the GOAT. I mean, I think Francis would have been in that exact same boat, and it would have been impossible to have a legitimate conversation about what he's good at. But look, the fact of the matter is, right, at this point, when people look back at the Tyson Fury fight, you're going to hear people say, well, Francis probably just came into that fight way out of shape, probably didn't even train, and, you know, that could very well be true, but at the end of the day, you're kind of just speculating, right? When you actually look at the fight and you actually see what happened, to me, what is so clear is Fury was trying to knock Francis out. I mean, it's just that simple. The very first punch Tyson Fury threw against Francis was a lunging right hand. All right, that is not typically how Tyson Fury fights. Tyson Fury is a master at using his range and his length to keep you away, but he was staying in the pocket and he was trying to knock Francis out, and as we saw, that was a terrible idea. I mean, you look at when he got knocked down, he threw a 1-2 right down the middle, right in range, and he was right there to get countered. You look at every single round that Francis had success, and it was when Tyson was in the pocket trying to brawl with him, which, terrible idea. Right? Terrible idea. When Fury was at his best in that fight, he was just jabbing, maintaining range, making Francis have to close the distance. And every time he did, he was just catching Francis all day long. Look, circling back to Francis's fight against Stipe, right? People make a lot of Francis defending that takedown from Stipe. And look, of course, yeah, Francis did make massive improvements to his takedown defense. But at the end of the day, if you've ever wrestled, if you've ever grappled before, you know size and strength plays a massive factor, and Stipe was outweighed by a minimum of 40 pounds. And look, what it comes down to is when somebody way weaker than you goes for a takedown, you just have more time to react to it. They cannot manipulate your body nearly as fast, whereas when somebody way stronger grabs a hold of you, they can just move you and jostle you around a lot faster, and you have way less time to react to the takedown. I mean, it's just that simple. Stipe got a hold of Francis's leg, and Francis didn't even attempt to start sprawling till a good 7 to 8 seconds after he grabbed a hold of the takedown, and he sprawled while Stipe had both of his arms wrapped around Francis's leg. The size and strength was on huge display there. And then you look at the Ciryl Gane fight, where again Francis had a size and a strength advantage. Ciryl was weighing about 245 pounds during that fight. Ngannou was about 270, and what we saw from that fight was Ngannou again could not close the distance against Ciryl Gane. On the feet, he was completely outclassed. And I mean, look, I understand that Francis did have 2 hurt knees going into that fight. I get it. I also understand, though, that pretty much every single mixed martial arts fight that's ever occurred, period, at least one of the fighters was significantly hurt going into it. That is just a factor of the sport. And Ciryl, without any length or height advantage, was just gliding around the outside, popping the jab, and Francis really could not find him at all with his hands. Just could not do it. But the other big thing we learned from that fight was, of course Francis had a massive size advantage, and he was using that to wrestle fuck Ciryl. Now, since then, we have learned that Ciryl Gane is extremely underprepared for ground fighting. I mean, let's just be honest, but still, that would be Ngannou's path to victory in my mind against Ferreira. I think, look, Ferreira's takedown defense genuinely isn't bad, and he's fought some legitimately very high-level Russian wrestlers who, since he's fought in them, has tested positive for PEDs. But you get him flat on his back, that is how he is going to win this fight. But again, 6'8", way longer, way taller. He has one-punch knockout power, and he's not going to be rushing into any punches. He's not going to be throwing out of position to get taken down. I think he's going to be quicker. I think he's going to be faster, and his entire game plan is going to be to try to catch Francis coming in, and that's terrifying. And look, again, I am rooting for Francis with all my heart and soul here. I want to see Dana White get just a little more red. I love it. I love when his skin tone changes to that of a tomato. I love it, but I gotta be honest that this is a terrifying fight for him. This is scary. Honestly, I just don't see a super high proficiency in Francis at closing the distance, at using his punches to get on the inside, especially being at a big speed disadvantage. Now again, if he gets to the clinch, I think he's going to be a bit stronger, and I think that, of course, he is going to have a little bit more power. If he lands once, he can end this fight. And again, there are paths to victory, but this is not a shoo-in. This is not an easy fight for him. And again, I want him to win so bad, but I'm afraid he's not gonna.